Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Hello, how are you? Oh my goodness me. I have been driving myself crazy. I've been using Skype for 20 years. I've been using Skype almost from when it first started. Not quite, but almost. And it's how I communicate with my clients that live in other locations that aren't around the corner from me. And Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, have decided to put it in the bin, which is fine. I can understand why they don't want to do it anymore, because it's free. It's been free for so long. Free. No money. You didn't have to pay anything. I don't know how they made it money. I think you could put a bit of money on an account and you could make phone calls, because when it was first invented, it was a phone calling system. And there was a DJ that I think he was called Whispering Bob Harris or something, but there was a radio DJ I know that was always talking about Skype, because he'd got into it and he could communicate with people in other countries. I mean, this is quite a while ago, and it didn't cost him loads of money like it might have done if it had been a regular telephone call down a telephone line. Anyway, long story short, they've decided that they don't want to run it anymore, which, how can anybody stop them? That's what they want to do. And so that doesn't leave much choice for people that are in my position, because the only other most famous form of video calling is Zoom. Because clients want to talk with me, but they don't want the conversation to go in the dustbin afterwards. And Skype was free, and you could have an unlimited amount of time on there, and you could record the session, and you could watch it back afterwards on Skype for 30 days, and then it would delete. But I could save them, I could send them to clients, and it was marvellous, and I loved it so much. Well, it was free, and it's gone down the toilet. So, I'll just pay for the business version of Teams. What a nightmare that was as well. I gave them my I gave them my mobile telephone number, and the page that I was on recognised that it was a UK telephone number, so I put it in with the 0 in front, without the 0 in front, neither of those worked, and I was on the chat with a person working at Microsoft. So Teams wouldn't happen. So Teams, you have to have a telephone number that they will then text you with a code that you put in. So it worked once for me. The guy on the chat had gone by now, and I put that number in, and it didn't recognise the number either. So I thought, not doing this. I can't be bothered with that. It'd do me head in. So I thought, well, I'll look at Google Meet, because I don't want to spend loads of money, okay? So I looked at Google Meet, and the same thing happened. All these companies are US based, and they just don't seem to recognise anything to do with British people, and I'm very cross about it. So I have now gone to Zoom. I was on Zoom anyway. I had the free account with Zoom, but it only lasts 40 minutes, and all my readings are either 60 minutes or 90 minutes. So I've had to bite the bullet, and I'm now using Zoom. So if you book with me, we won't be using Skype anymore. If you're having your lessons with me on Skype, we cannot do it, because in May it's going to cease to exist, and at the moment it's already getting very wobbly. So I have, as I say, bitten the bullet, and I'm now using Zoom, which is a totally different setup altogether. Takes up loads of memory. But anyway, I am now on Zoom, so end of my moan. Now, why am I telling you this? Because you at some point in the future are going to book a lesson, or you're going to book a reading, or you're going to want to speak to me in some way. And what I was using in the past, I won't. So if you've got a recording on Skype with me, and you've had your reading recently, go and get it, because your Skype account won't exist anymore. They'll swap it over to Teams. There's a free version of Teams, but you can talk on it, but you cannot record. So there are only 3 platforms that will record a video for you. It's Zoom, it's Google Meet, and it's Teams, and no one else offers anything. Okay, no, and this is the year 2025. You'd think there'd be lots of different companies that would want to let you have a video call with someone and be able to record the meeting. No. And talking about it on Instagram, and back in the day I used to have a tape recorder. So this is way back in the day. I had a tape recorder that clients have their session. I'd press play and then it would record, and I used to have to buy special tapes that would last for 90 minutes for the 90, because I've always offered either 60 minutes or 90 minutes. And they were a bit stretchy, sometimes the sound of woo. But anyway, they'd have tapes, and then tapes went down the toilet. So then it was CDs. That was much more difficult because I used to burn them on my computer. I've got a Mac and I had a Bernie thing, and some people could read them, some people couldn't. They could get, I'd always save them as audio, but some, depending what device you had at home. And oh my goodness me, and I feel like I've taken a big step back in time. I really do. Because with the tapes and the CDs, I had lots of different options and places that I could buy them, and I could get the discounted or whatever. I've got a choice of 3 different companies, 2 of which I can't use because I use in the UK and it doesn't recognise a UK telephone number. I'm now with Zoom. Now, and I just want to slip in a very big thank you to Jasmine and Katrina for answering over 2 episodes about nodal oppositions and nodal thingies, and I've got my head around it now. I understand it. I probably won't be using them much, but boomf. Now you know, and we all know about how they work. So we've covered that in depth. Now, if we go back a few episodes, to episodes, excuse me, because I've got everything written down here and I'm moving bits of paper. Episode 431. So episode 431, we were doing reading and we had a podcast example chart, and I'd asked you to guess the date of birth for the person and reverse engineer it, and also let me know the analysis of the chart itself. So I've had a reply from a young lady called Imogen, so give big waves out there for Imogen. And I want to read you just a little bit of some of the email that she sent. So hold on. So she says, I've been meaning to write for a while to say how much I love your podcast. Oh, thank you. Every episode is so interesting, and your style of teaching and sharing information is so much easier to understand and absorb. So a massive thank you for all you share. Also, you're just so lovely. Listening to an episode feels like having a friend or neighbour popping over for a cuppa. Well, I do hope it does sound like that, because I never want to sound so formal and up my own doody-da that it isn't a comfortable experience. So she says, when you put out the invitation to look at a chart and send you an interpretation, I immediately jumped to it. What a great learning opportunity. I have to say, I think my Virgo rising might have got me going in deep into details. I was so into the birth chart portion that I haven't managed to get to all of the things you mentioned, because she's a busy homeschooling mum. Like looking at the transit rhythmogram for specific dates, but as you wanted this to you before, but as I wanted to get this to you before Sunday, because she knows I could do it on Sunday, I thought I'd better send it as it is rather than not at all. I hope it's okay. Please find the attached below. Hope you have a lovely weekend. So she sent me her interpretation, which she'd written herself, of the chart that we had, because it's numbered pod 1. And she also, with the help of her mother, reverse engineered it, because apparently her mother is also an astrologer. So I read her interpretation and I gave her a bit of feedback about it, and then we had a bit more emails. And where are we now? So I need, so I sent to her, I said, oh, you're a winner. Because I'd said on that podcast, if you manage to reverse engineer the chart, then you'll get a prize. And she'd done such a good job of getting the location and the time of birth. I was like astounded, actually. Gosh, how did you manage to do that? So she said, thank you so much for all this feedback. I really appreciate you taking the time. I was using an ephemeris to try and figure out the date and time, but it's tricky, and I asked my mum, who's an astrologer, for help. So please, please, please pass the gift of a discount on to someone else taking part, as I had a helping hand and I should have mentioned it. I use astro.com and AstroSeek to make charts up, but I was making a point of trying not to read their interpretations. I have been trying to really gem up on keywords and understanding the planet signs and houses. Now, we haven't, and we didn't in the email, talk about the fact that those keywords are available on my website. Okay, so I might have said it in a episode a few weeks ago, but I'm going to say it again. If you go to www.maryenglish.com/ and write the word keywords with a capital K, KEYWORDS.txt, because TXT stands for text document, you'll see a page there where I have all the keywords for the signs of the zodiac, all the keywords for the planets, and all the keywords for the houses. So if you're doing a chart and you're practicing, just get that off my website. That's your cheat sheet. Get your chart you're doing and write on it in pencil or pen or however you want to do it, the keywords, and it will make it so much easier for you to understand the charts that you're doing. Anyway, in the email exchange we had, she also said that, hold on, let me just move over. Oh yes, because when she'd done her interpretation of the chart, she talked about a stellium, and she'd used a different body in the chart. So stelliums, so this is the official definition, is 3 or more planets either in a house or in the same sign or very close to each other. And when she did her interpretation, she was talking about the person who volunteered their chart podcast one, saying that she'd got a stellium and she hadn't, because it was just 2 planets, and 2 doesn't make a stellium. So then she said, I thought that the stellium was 3 or more planets in a house or sign, that other significant parts would count as well. Thank you for clarifying. So my husband has one in his 3rd house with 3 planets in Libra, but the 2nd house isn't one, as the part of fortune doesn't count. Now I am going to share her husband's chart, and she's using AstroSeek, which I don't use. So I've reverse engineered his chart and I found his date of birth, which I won't obviously say on the podcast because we haven't got permission. But what I'll do is I'll just put a little clip of his chart on the show notes, and I'll talk you through it as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about a bit more about stelliums to help Imogen, because I love being able to help people understand questions that have been raised in the email exchanges or whatever. And before I forget, because I was halfway through saying it a minute ago, I do bounce about a lot and I apologise, that if you've reverse engineered that chart, or you've written interpretation for the chart that's on episode number 431, if you send it to me, I will award you the same award that I've given to Imogen, which is 50% off a reading. So it's a 50% discount. However, the discount will expire at the end of April this year. So I know there's numbers of you that are listening and are catching up, but there are also people that listen to each episode it comes out. But the discount will expire the end of April this year. So if you can get your interpretation of that chart and or reverse engineer it and give me, if nothing else, the date of birth and the time, which you should be able to work out to be able to make the ascendant right, but the location might be a bit more tricky, okay? Because she says she doesn't want to accept the 50% discount, which I think is very sad. I would have been quite happy to give it to her. So let's just move on a little bit about stelliums. Now, a stellium is lots of planets all in the same sign, or lots of planets all in a house that are very close together. Because the definition of a stellium, because the word stellium comes from the word stellar, S-T-E-L-L-A-R, which is of a star or star, so it applies to astrology. But a stellium is 3 or more planets together. Okay. Now, in hubby's chart, he does have the sun is 0 degrees Libra. She's added in the part of fortune, so we're not including that. He's got Saturn 11 degrees Libra. He's got Jupiter 16 degrees Libra. He's got Pluto 23 degrees Libra, and he's got Mercury 27 degrees Libra. So that whole bundle of Libra planets, which comprises of 5 planets, that is a stellium. The Sun, because it's 0 degrees, and the next planet on is Saturn, which is 11 degrees. I think you might get into an argument with someone about whether or not the Sun and Saturn are actually conjunct to each other. But in this case, it doesn't matter. This is somebody that's 3, 4, 5 planets all in the same sign, and 4 of them are very, very close. So that... And it doesn't matter about the houses, because the houses is falling between the second house and the third house. Because houses can end up anywhere in your chart, depending on what your ascendant sign is. So in hubby's case, his ascendant is 12 degrees Leo, and he's got Mars right on the ascendant at 13 degrees, and the moon just in the 12th at 11 degrees. If you've everything, then all the other houses will start at 12 degrees. But as far as stelliums go, your stellium could bridge 2 different houses. Okay, so you can have stellium by sign or stellium by house. He definitely has a stellium in his 3rd house. No two ways about the stellium falls in the 3rd, but you could add in the fact that he has the Sun in Libra and say, oh, well, actually he's got a stellium of slightly more planets. You with me? In the 4th house is only 2 planets, which is Venus and Uranus, and the 5th has only got 1. Now, the other thing she was saying, because hubby, and I think she mentioned there was a few other people in the family, so hubby and, she said, the first 3 charts I looked at for friends all had stelliums, 2 of them in the 12th house, the house I find hardest to properly understand. My husband and daughter both have their moons in the 12th, so I keep coming back to it to try and more deeply absorb its meanings. Well, Imogen, the 12th house is the house of dreams. And anybody that has, and my mother had moon in the 12th, okay? And people that have their moon located in their 12th ain't going to tell you how they feel. It's not going to happen. You are going to have to twist their arm to find out how they feel. Now, they know how they feel because they can dream and do all of those things. My mother was a marvellous dreamer. I've mentioned it once before, that she could have dreams and then go back into the same dream and carry on with it the next night. And she had moon in the 12th. And it doesn't matter what sign of the zodiac the moon is in, if it's in the 12th, because it represents the person's feelings, and the 12th house is the hidden house, the stuff we hide from others. Unless you really twist their arm, they are not going to reveal how they feel. They're going to keep it to themselves, not because they want to be deceptive or anything. It's just that they don't feel comfortable talking about how they feel. It really doesn't happen. It's very, very tricky getting a moon in the 12th house person to talk about how they feel. They might act it out, they might draw it or paint it or whatever, but to sit them and sort of put the spotlight on them and insist that they open up, they'll be running for the hills, especially in my mother's case, because she had moon in Gemini. People will tell you how they feel. They'll tell you how they think they feel, because it's an air sign. Okay, so 12th house people. Now, a stellium in the 12th, that's a lot of energy to have in there. The person needs to do all those things that Katrina was talking about in the last episode. So it's meditation, it's dreaming, it's creative stuff. It's things that that would involve using your higher self, connecting to the cosmos, to the divine, to the unreachable, the whole dream, hypnosis, all of those things. Those are all 12th house places. It's a hermit house, it's the house of convents, and if we get into things like orrery astrology and old medieval astrology, So I'm quoting here from Anthony Lewis's lovely book, Orrery Astrology, Plain and Simple. Actually, I really ought to get him on the show one day. He says the 12th house is seclusion, undoing, personal failings, hospitalisation, confinement, jail. Goodness me. Bondage, prisoners, captives, slaves, restriction, fears, punishment, self-undoing, the collective unconscious. That would be more I'd be happy to talk about. Widowhood, institutions, retreats, clandestine affairs, secret dealings, secrets, poetry, drugs and alcohol, invalids, maternal aunts and uncles, sorrows, unseen dangers, disappointments, hidden limitations, suicide, murder, assassination, charity, animals larger than a goat, and the joy of Southern, which I have no idea what that means. In my cheat sheet, I'm just saying that the 12th house is the hidden self. So I think that sort of encompasses it. It's the bits that we don't, it's the sort of the closet really that you don't want to open up and have other people. It's not that they don't want other people to find what they've got in their 12th house. If somebody's got something in the 12th and they want to reveal it to you, they'll have to do it when they feel good and ready. But you wouldn't be the person that could poke them about being, oh, show me what you got in your 12th house, because they're just, they'll be running for the hills, yeah. So having a stellium in the 12th is going to mean that the motivator, it depends which planets it is, mind, but the motivator for them, there's going to be a lot of necessity for unconscious, subconscious, dreamy, sort of otherworldly type of things for the person. Neptune's happy in the 12th, so I wouldn't consider that as being a problem. There aren't too many planets that are happy in the 12th, but Neptune is, because it's a ruler to that house. I do know people with Saturn in the 12th whose fathers weren't around when they were little, and Jupiter in the 12th it's about our luck and stuff. So not every planet's going to react in the same way or work in the same way when it's in the 12th house. Now, there are plenty of people that have written books about the 12th house. One of the most famous is by Tracy Marks, and I think she had planets in the 12th. I think that's what motivated her to do it. So the book is called Your Secret Self, Illuminating the Mysteries of the 12th. And I've read that. I know it's published in 1989, which is millions of years ago. But if I remember rightly, I'm sure she's a Libra. But she was a psychotherapist as well, being an astrologer. And I've still got a copy of that. It was probably worth a couple of bob now. But it was a really, really good book. So I do recommend, Imogen, that you get a copy of that, because that will help you understand these people that you know a little bit more that have got things in their 12th, yeah. Now, the other thing I'd like to ask you is, if you have a stellium in your chart, can you ping me over an email and go, Mary, I've got a stellium, so that I can invite you on the show and we can talk about stelliums. There's a lot of people that are giving their opinion on stelliums, but they don't actually have them themselves. Now, a little while ago, well, it's not that little actually, it's quite a while ago, in episode 275, we had Stephanie James on the show because she has a stellium and her podcast is called the Stellium Podcast. And we talked, and so I've interviewed her, she's interviewed me. I think I've interviewed her twice. So, yeah, she'll be knocking about on my YouTube channel and also on the podcast. She does actually have a stellium, and so she has a much better understanding from the owner's point of view of what it feels like to have one. But I'd like to, but in addition, I'd like to speak to a listener who has a stellium. So that's 3 or more planets, either in the same sign or in the same house. So you could, like, half your stellium's Libra and the other half is very early degree to Scorpio type of thing. And so that we can get, how has that manifested in you? How has that physically either helped or not helped you, or what have been the challenges and stuff? Because stelliums are, I love stelliums. That was one of the reasons that I got into astrology to start with, was one-sided birth charts. If you have a one-sided birth chart, you're born between 1978 and 1999, you're more likely to have a one-sided chart. You're more likely to be an indigo if you've got Uranus and Neptune conjunction, which only happens once every 170 years. So go to episode 21, there's more details. If you've got the Neptune and Uranus conjunction in Capricorn as well, and a one-sided chart, and all your planets on one side of the circle, you are an indigo, and you're a rare being. Those people aren't going to be born again for at least another 170 years. And now that Neptune has gone into Aries, for that generation that was born with the Uranus-Neptune conjunction, you are going to have a square from Neptune. So how's that going to manifest for you? If you've got an early degree Uranus Capricorn conjunction, actually I can't remember what degrees it was, 1 minute. Yeah, it became exactly conjunct in October 93, when Uranus was 18 degrees and Neptune was 18 degrees. So if you were born in October 93, you've got that conjunction. But if you were born a little bit before the conjunction happened, but both of those two outer planets, Uranus and Neptune, were in the sign of Capricorn, now Neptune transiting through the sign of Aries is going to affect you. No two ways about it. You were born under a conjunction that is astrologically rare, that isn't going to repeat. That particular conjunction won't repeat for 170 years, but now you're going to experience Neptune in the sign of Aries, which is going to make you, Neptune in Aries is going to want to kick back. It always does. Aries is the kickback sign. And Neptune's sort of psychic ability and being able to tune into people. But that's going to conflict in a sense between Pluto in Aquarius, because Aquarius is a very, very, very kickback sign. Aquarius doesn't want to comply. Aquarius doesn't want to follow the same things as other people. It's a unique and individual sign of the zodiac that doesn't even want to. They like the camaraderie of things, but they like to think they're unique and different. Well, they are unique and different. I've just been on holiday with 2 Aquarians, 2 siblings. They're very unique and different. So the outer planets change in sign. So Pluto in Aquarius isn't going to do anything to your Uranus-Neptune conjunction, but Neptune being in Aries will, and then Uranus going into Aries, Uranus going into, we're now in Taurus, it goes into Gemini, won't do anything to it. So those 2 outer planets are out of it, but Neptune making that lengthy transit through the sign of Aries at some point in a few years' time, it is going to affect that natal conjunction you've got. And I'd love to, I might even do a podcast on it, we'll see. But you with your stellium, please get in contact. I don't care how shy you are, just ping me an email, mary@marying.co.uk. I'm not going to kill you. No one's going to ruin your life by speaking with me. And I won't mention your name of the podcast, but I'd love to have a sort of an email exchange with you, or a chat that I just transcribe, so we can keep you extremely anonymous, not a problem. We can do the anonymity, but I want to speak to you about your stellium and how it's manifested for yourself, because just as a quick way of understanding a stellium is, if you imagine you made a cake and you put coconut milk and coconut powder and dried coconut and coconut this and coconut that, and all of these different flavours of, but still coconut, so still derived from coconut, and you squished it all into your cake. Can you imagine what that cake would take like? So you've used coconut oil, you've used coconut cream, you've used coconut powder, you've coconut flour, you've used coconut milk, you've used coconut flavouring. Imagine what that cake, it will blow your mind, because it's just so coconutty. And this is what it's like having a stellium, depending on what side of the zodiac it's. So if you just imagine in your mind, you've got it in Aries, do that stuff. So your stellium, wherever it is in your chart, is going to overdo that sign of the zodiac, depending on what sign of the zodiac it is in and which house it's in, how it's going to manifest itself. But I always think as stelliums, it's like an overdose of that sign of the zodiac. There's no missing. You can't miss someone that's got a stellium in a certain sign, because they'll always return. That energy in their chart is it's sort of like a comic, depending on what sign, it's going to do it less of those sort of noises I've just made it if it's in an earth sign. But trust me, if it's in an air sign or a fire sign, you cannot miss that person that owns the stellium, depending on the house it's in and whether or not it's on the ascendant. All the locations change it, but it's such a strong energy. So consequently, the person that has it can focus beautifully into the area of life where their stellium is and the sign it's in. So say you had your stellium in the 8th house, you would be going into deep, dark detail about your finances and all that sort of 8th house, sex, birth, death, reincarnation, scorpionic sort of energy. You would dive down deep into that. And so the other bits of your chart, consequently, can be quite neglected, especially your ascendant. People with strong stelliums in their chart very, very rarely actually exhibit their ascendants, because that energy in their chart with the stellium is burning so brightly like a comet. Their ascendant just gets blasted out of the water, and you'll never even guess what sign of the zodiac their ascendant is. It's much, much harder. But what does it feel like for you, the person with the stellium? I hope that description I've just given you gives a bit of an insight. But anyway, I want to interview, so get in touch, mary@maryenglish.co.uk. So today it's just a quick episode to talk about the episode that we've already had, that if you haven't managed to do that chart and you're not too sure whether or not to send it to me or what to, just send it. Okay, just bite the bullet like our lovely Imogen has done, and I will award you what I would have given to her, because she was the first person to reply, the 50% discount, because there were 3 prizes: 50%, 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%, depending on how many people replied. So you can have her first prize. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.